This is my first live stream ever, so it's cool to see that this apparently is working. I guess y'all can hear me okay. Would you let me know if you can hear me? That'd be great. Let me know in the comments. Thank you, Lefty. So I wanted to mention a couple of topics that we're going to be doing here in the future. I've got a really great video planned for Tuesday. I want to release this video Tuesday. It's going to be how to select a high caliber dog or high caliber prospect when you're looking for a great high value dog or puppy. You know what to go about when selecting that individual. We're going to talk about things about what you are personally looking for in a dog. You have to first be honest with yourself. A lot of people aren't really honest with themselves. It's very important for you to get the dog that you want. You need to be honest with yourself about what it is that you're expecting from that dog. Next, you need to look at um, the breeder. In my opinion, the breeder selection is extremely critical when it comes to getting a high value dog. Next, look at the pedigree. Now, not in detail yet. We're going to get a more detailed analysis of the pedigree later, but you're going to look briefly at the pedigree, see what's going on recently. Then you're going to look very carefully at the dog. And we're going to talk about how I go about selecting a high value candidate for myself. And then the last thing we're going to do after I've selected a puppy that or a dog that meets the criteria that I'm looking for, then I'll go back and I'll look at that pedigree again, giving a much more detailed analysis and review of the pedigree. And the reason why I look at the pedigree twice is because the pedigree a lot of times will attract you to an individual, but the pedigree alone is irrelevant if the dog doesn't meet the traits required from that pedigree. It can be trash or it could be or it could be gold, you know. So the only way to know the differentiate between the trash or the gold is you have to look at the dog. What the dog shows you is more important than the pedigree alone. Okay, so a lot of people today are breeding off pedigree alone, and that's a huge, huge mistake. So we're going to go into detail on that on Tuesday. All right. It does. I do have it set up on slow chat, by the way, so you can only make a comment about once every minute. Um, that allows me to see everybody's comment and also prevents spam. So that's something we set up. For those of you who that don't know who I am, American Sentinel K9 is my company, and we breed both the American Pit Bull Terrier, the game bred American Pit Bull Terrier, focusing primarily on the Sorrels line, although we have some Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone stuff coming in through Mayday and some other dogs bred similar to Mayday. And then we also have the American Sentinel, which is a working class band dog type of dog. A band dog, a lot of people think a band dog is a pit bull mastiff cross. It's not actually what the word means. We can save that for another video if we want to discuss that in detail. But basically, a band dog is a dog that is restrained by a tether of some type. The word band means to be banded, to be held back, like a rubber band or a band aid. These are a bandage. These are all things that are holding something back. And so, in many ways, even the game bred American Pit Bull Terrier is a band dog because it is held back until it's time to be released. And when it's released, it goes and catches its quarry. And quarry means its prey item or targeted item that it's supposed to go out there and catch, be it a hog or whatever it may be. All right, so the American Sentinel is similar to the American Pit Bull Terrier in many regards because performance selection, where we're looking for a lot of these traits of high degree of determination, athleticism, commitment, pain tolerance, etc. Um, these type of things that we see in an American Pit Bull Terrier, but we've changed and modified basically two primary traits. One of them being a little bit more loyal. See, a pit bull is a lot of times friendly to strangers. They're loyal in the aspect that they love their family, but they tend to be very friendly with strangers. And the American Sentinel may be friendly with strangers at times, depending on how you socialize it, but they also kind of have that closed circle that they're really connected to. The other aspect with the American Sentinel is it's just a bigger dog. It's going to be more powerful than the American Pit Bull. Not pound for pound. Let's be honest here. The American Pit Bull Terrier is the apex animal in the world and dog breed in the world when it comes for pound per pound efficiency. They have been selected for a long time to really perform the task. And in my opinion, two animals that are perfected to their task are going to be the American Pit Bull Terrier and the Greyhound, and possibly even the Husky. But I don't mean the showbred Husky, and I don't mean the showbred um, Greyhound, and I don't mean the showbred Amstaff. I'm talking about dogs that are coming from working camps where where huskies had to pull sleds 2,000 miles in the Iditarod. You have to be an awesome animal to do that. The greyhound is the second fastest four-legged animal on the planet, and it's the fastest man selected, but after man selection, it has become the second fastest four-legged animal on the planet. The only thing that's faster is the cheetah. Um, so we're talking about certain distances here. Obviously, some things may be faster at longer or shorter ranges, but for the cheetah's distance, that is uh, how that is. Aaron Mills, I was just asking you in the group chat about weight collars and weighted vests. When should you start if you start? I don't use weighted vests or collars. I do have a vest for if I was to go camping. To me, a dog, for example, let me backtrack on that question a little bit towards weight pull. Weight pull, I have agreed with a friend of mine, Bubba Mix, that weight pull event, I think it was him that said it, maybe it was someone else, that weight pull events are kind of like watching grass grow. I bought some equipment, we played around with it for a little while, and we had some fun with it for a little while. But personally, weight pull was kind of like for watching grass, was kind of like watching grass grow. It was just kind of a boring activity. If I'm going to go out and work an animal, I want some of that adrenaline rush and excitement. It's just I don't get excited with like a deadlift type of activity for a dog. It just doesn't float my boat. And but if you're trying to build muscle mass, I would rather recommend something like a carpet mill. I think that would be better for the dog. I'm not into weighted collars and weighted vests myself, but some people disagree with that. I don't have a problem with that. We should all follow what our own desires are with our dogs within the confines of ethics and law. All right. Next, Nicholas said, "Do you think a raw diet would increase the size of your dogs? I know it's not practical with the amount of dogs that I own." All right, or you own? He's talking about me. I said I changed it to I own. Um, as far as how it impacts size, I don't know. We've had um, dogs that were large and dogs that were small that were fed similar diets or different diets. Overall, there's no doubt that a raw diet is going to be superior to a kibble if you know how to do it properly. The kibble is, let's call it what it is. It's a cereal. It's a blanded, dehydrated food put in a box or a bag. That's what kibble is. It's put in a bag, but it's the same kind of deal as putting it in a box like a cereal. There's no way you're going to optimize fitness and health eating the same basic cereal, kibble, dog food day after day after day, year after year after year. However, dogs have been domesticated for so long and so much testing has been done in the dog food industry that they've kind of got a pretty good fix on a decent level of fitness and performance from a kibble. The problem with the raw dog food diet is you have to do it right. If you don't do it right, your dog may be deficient on various nutrients. Now, is it going to be hard to do it right? No, I don't think it's that hard to do it right. If you think about an animal in nature, they're going to be opportunistic feeders and they're going to eat what they find. And there's going to be a lot of variation in what they find, but it's not necessarily presented like in proportions to the optimum nutrition of an animal. There has to be some sort of flexibility in an animal's ability to pull nutrients out based on, let's say you get a small amount of that, and yes, it may be better if you had a higher amount of that, but because it's in a rare amount, your body soaks it up real quick when you get it. All right. I do believe there's going to be some flexibility. Just like if you drink a bunch of water, you're going to have to go to the bathroom and get rid of the excess. If you don't go to if you don't have access to water, your kidneys are going to be to a certain degree recycle the water that you have in. So there's going to be some flexibility just within the body to have a range of optimum. This small amount may be optimum, but because they're living organisms with metabolism and recycling efficiency through the liver and the kidneys and whatnot, some of those nutrients will be recycled back into the body. So it doesn't have to be perfect, 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 but there still has to be, you still have to make sure you're getting everything you need. Okay. And not way grossly too much of something you don't need. And that's the problem with the raw diet. I personally feed a lot of kibble, but in a perfect world, I would feed a raw diet. Um, we have fed tens of thousands of pounds of raw chicken. I've fed, believe it or not, probably about 5,000 pounds of beef. over all the years. We used to buy beef by 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds at a time, but that was decades ago, and my source of that beef is now gone, unfortunately. Will it make them bigger? I won't say that it'll make it bigger. I have seen, let me mention one other thing about a raw diet. I have seen dogs, this was also 20 years ago, where a dog that was fed a lot of beef, and I'm not going to mention the brand of dog food that we were feeding at that time, but some people may know that we were feeding a kibble and a meat blend, and some of the pasterns on some of the dogs would roll over. That was 20 years ago. I haven't had that problem, but I think that was a combination of diet because I've never seen that problem unless calcium and vitamin D and sunlight were all depleted in a certain degree because sunlight causes the body to metabolize or produce vitamin D, and vitamin D and has a impact on the calcium phosphorus absorption in the bone. And so sometimes you might see skeletal issues if you have a very rainy winter. The reason why I say a rainy winter is in the winter time you have less sun, and if it's raining a lot or cloudy a lot, you have less sun. And then you add to that the calcium and phosphorus ratio is not being balanced. That's when you're going to see skeletal issues. All right. So it's not going to be a single factor in many times. Many times it's a combination of multiple factors coming into play at once. All right. So balanced nutrition is important. Next, Doug, super chat. Thank you for telling me you have to turn on the super chat feature on the viewer side. Cool. I didn't know that how that worked. All right. What made you interested in the evolution of the game K9? All right. So for my whole life, I have been somewhat of an outdoorsman. I always was kind of a fisherman or a hunter or a hiker or a kayaker. These were my types of things that I like to do. Um, the I had a companion dog when I was a kid, and that dog just really had a really good tight bond with me. We went everywhere together. And with my outdoor activities, I became drawn towards nature and drawn towards animals as a whole. I've never been much of a botanist. I don't know much about plants and whatnot, but I am very good with animals. I've always been able to kind of see details that a lot of people don't see, whether it be dent on a car or a paint line or something like that. I just have a good eye for details. And so noticed that a lot of dogs were deficient in certain traits that I wanted to see in an animal that I was personally going to own. And so, hey, thank you, Doug. I really appreciate the donation. Doug donated $5. I really appreciate that. Viewer support is great, and that's one of the reasons why I did this channel was to be able to provide input to you, and I really appreciate it when people that um, appreciate that input and help us maintain this channel. I want to get a some sort of encoded, I don't know the details yet, encoded program on my computer so I can actually show you not only my face and not only that you hear my voice, but also be able to show you my screen. Because one of the things that I want to go into is in-depth pedigree analysis. A lot of people send me their pedigrees and ask me to review their pedigrees, and I can't do it unless I know the dogs. You got to know the dogs to review a pedigree properly. And so a lot of these people that do this, I think they don't even know the dogs, and that's kind of sad. Because if you're going to buy a dog, you need to before you ask somebody else to. I don't know how to like your comment. It says there's. I see a like there, but I don't. How do I do that? Let's see if I can. I hope I don't delete it. Let's see. No, I don't know how to like it. Anyway, I'll just write thank you if I can. My apologies. Oh, here we go. Got a love choice. There we go. I loved your donation. Appreciate it. All right. Next, Nicholas, also thank you for doing the same thing. I appreciate your support as well. He donated to the channel. I appreciate you guys' support. But what I was going to say is I want to buy an encrypted program so we can actually show you some stuff that I can see. And that way I don't just have my rhetoric. Anybody can talk a game, but can they actually explain it and prove it? I've seen people talk about pedigrees, and it's kind of funny. You can tell some of these people are good salesmen. Okay, if you don't know the topic, it's easy to pull the wool over the eyes of somebody that doesn't know what to identify. I've seen people talk about Punnett squares, and one person, he may be a good breeder. I'm not trying to trash the guy. I'm not going to mention his name because it would be unprofessional to do so. But I saw one guy talking about a Punnett square, saying that it showed 4 generations, and he said each square represented a generation. And I was like, that's not what a Punnett square is. But we'll save genetic type videos for another topic. But my point in here is it's important that the person that is providing the rhetoric can also provide proof of concept and explain it. If they can't explain it to you or they can't show it to you, then be careful who your teachers are. And so we need some people online that are able to provide proof of concept and proof of explanation and not just rhetoric. All right, next. Let's see. What made me interested in canines? So I was always interested in dogs. I saw shortcomings in the animals that I wanted, and as a hiker and kayaker, I noticed that a lot of dogs were just not healthy. And so then I started looking at what animals were healthy, because if I have a canine companion and I'm hiking, I don't want to have to pick that dog up and carry it back to the camp and sacrifice the adventures that I'm on because the dog cannot perform and recover and continue going. In my opinion, a wolf should be able to outwork me. And so since a dog is domesticated canine, a domesticated wolf, then why was the dog domesticated to begin with? They were domesticated. The wolves were domesticated to begin with for hunting and for protection purposes. That's what they were originally domesticated for, and they were superior than the human being in those regards. If you took the human's weapons away, if you took away our bows and arrows and spears and guns and things like knives and things like that, tools, then the canine was just a better performer. Well, did humans survive? With our brain. All right. So we had to compensate. And the dog brings in a physical ability that we did not have. And so in my pursuit of the perfect canine, I wanted an animal that did not suffer in its physical and mental determination, physical ability and mental determination. And this is what drawed me to the American Pit Bull Terrier. I think it's kind of ironic that our society wants to ostracize or bastardize the American Pit Bull Terrier because if you look at it, history, 100 years ago, universities, high schools, all kinds of organizations were using the pit bull as a mascot. Why? Because it was a determined animal. Determination is a strength. Now, how you use that strength is going to be up to the owner. You can use it for good things or you can use it for bad things. And to condemn the entire breed because there are some people that want to participate in unethical or illegal activities is not right to the breed. The dog deserves better. All right. And there have been times in history when the American Pit Bull Terrier has proven to use its determination in very appropriate tasks. Like hog hunting. There's not a dog on the planet, in my opinion, that can excel at hog hunting catch work better than the American Pit Bull Terrier pound for pound. Now, there are some breeds, like I think the American Sentinel is a little bit better for anchoring that hog because it's got more weight. But pound for pound, the American Pit Bull Terrier is the apex. But the problem with that pound for pound type scenario is when you're going out to catch a pig, it's not pound for pound. It's pound versus whatever you encounter. And you might encounter a 40-pound pig or you might encounter a 400-pound pig. And when you encounter that 400-pound hog, having a little bit extra weight on you is a benefit. And then for protection work, many American Pit Bull Terriers are 30 pounds, 40 pounds. And the American Pit Bull Terrier just doesn't have the weight that I wanted. So I wanted to bring its determination in and its health in and its athleticism in and its heat tolerance in, its stamina, the ability to breathe, its efficiency into the American Sentinel. But I also wanted to add the power and strength. All right, what made you? So that's where I got into canines. Basically, I've had dogs my whole life, and originally I had no intention of being a breeder. I wanted to be an owner, but in the pursuit of the ultimate canine, I I realized I was going to have to breed. I was going to have to produce that animal that I desired. I came across a book called The World of Fighting Dogs, written by Carl Simincic when I was at the University of Illinois, and I came across Bantu, which is Swinford's Bantu, and John Swinford. He lived a life that I personally don't agree with. He had some behaviors that I disagree with. A lot of people don't know it. He was a feminine type of man. He lived that lifestyle. Um, it has nothing to do with the dogs. Okay. He also used drugs. That was nothing to do with the dogs. That's just part of his personal life that a lot of people don't know. I've never really spoken about that before. But The dude bred some great dogs, and my ultimate goal of what I wanted out of a dog versus what he wanted out of a dog is not the same, but it's very similar. So I studied his work, and then I learned a little bit about his venue, and I spent 10 years building my foundation in education of behavior and genetics and things like this. And I've seen some people that want to downplay education in a vineyard. They call it book smarts. I'm going to tell you who calls it book smarts. The people that call it book smarts are one, people that don't have an education. Because if you have if you go to school to be a welder, you don't just read a book. You have to grab a welder. You have to use that welder. The difference is you're not doing it unguided, and you're not doing it with just somebody that's an experienced welder. You're doing it with the people who have studied this stuff in detail, done hundreds of experiments. For example, when I was at the University of Illinois, I did 1,000 experiments, excuse me, 1,000 surgeries, reproductive surgeries. A lot of people don't know that. I literally did 1,000. We had groups of 200, 5 groups of 200. Okay, so multiply 5 by 200 and you have 1,000. Originally, it was set up to be 5 groups of 100, but then something was noticed that the anesthesia was impacting the animals, and it didn't hurt the animals, but it impacted the results that we were testing on. So we had to do all that over with a different anesthesia. It was such a pain in the wazoo. But um, so yeah, book smarts absolutely does matter because you're dealing with people that are not just reading a book or writing a book. You're in the trenches with these people, and they are the professionals in the field. All right, next. So I learned that stuff, did that for 10 years, working with those people, got 2 degrees in the subject, and then I went into the field, bought my property because you have to have property to have a lot of dogs. All right, next. That's when I started breeding. What thoughts on the Rottweiler and the German Shepherd? All right, you name two breeds that are kind of rank driven. The rank driven dog has dominated in protection work because not because of its ability, but because of its accessibility and easy to train. The rank driven dogs, anybody can kind of stand in front of them and huff and puff and bluff and posture and trigger those dogs. The problem with those dogs, especially with the Rottweiler, is they will dominate. The German Shepherd's guilty of this too. Uh, they will dominate when you dominate, try to dominate that dog, but you don't put any follow through with it. That turns the dog on and it looks good. The problem with the dog that fights out of rank is what does a rank driven dog do when it's dominated? It submits. And because it's fighting for rank, when it can't establish rank, it submits. The fight is now out of the window. So I don't like Rottweiler or German Shepherds because in a real serious combative task, they're not going to stay engaged. They're going to submit. And then the other, because they're not fighting out of the pleasure to fight, they're fighting to dominate. And so the American Pit Bull Terrier, is different because it actually enjoys combat. The American Sentinel, it's not catching it to dominate the hog. It's catching it um, because it enjoys the combat. And so now this is the responsibility is not just on the dog, the responsibility is now on the owner. So the owner has to make sure that that dog is understood that that is a type of band dog that has to be tethered and restrained until it's time and a time to be released and it's in an appropriate situation to be released. I don't like rank driven dogs because they quit. The other reason why I don't like a rank driven dog is because rank driven dogs are a lot of times opportunistic. They seek opportunity to establish position in the pack. And because my dogs live in the pack with me and my family, I don't want a dog that wants to find an opportunity and capitalize on an opportunity to bite the hand that feeds it. A dog that shows aggression within the pack is not going to be fed around here. Okay. So that's the two problems on the Rottweiler and the German Shepherd. You're welcome to disagree. They are easy to get started, they're easy to train, and they should be handled by canine professionals for police and military and things like that. But they're not, in my opinion, for the home. All right. Next, can you talk about supplements given to pregnant females? Uh, he says pubs, but I'm sure he means pups, and follows it up with and adults. I don't give any supplements. We run a breeding program, and if a dog has to be given supplements, then, in my opinion, the dog is probably lacking some sort of genetic adaptability that I want it to have on its own. So just feed a high quality kibble and you're covered. If you want to supplement with additional sources, so be it, but do your research on that. One thing that we will use for puppies, I guess you can call it a supplement, is if a pregnant female is having a hard time producing enough milk, or if a pregnant female is not producing good milk, maybe she had an infection, we use goat milk, which you can get at Kroger or Walmart, places like that. But the goat milk, I prefer the carton. I don't like to use the can. You can use the can if you start on day one and the puppies haven't developed a palate for that goat milk. Usually the canned goat milk will work okay. But if you let's say the it takes you 3 or 4 days to find out the mother's not producing really good milk, and then you're going to try to use the carton or try to use the can. Sometimes puppies don't like it. They're like, "This is gross. It has probably that metallic taste." We've all drank canned milk a time or two before, or reconstituted powder milk. Just it doesn't taste very good. But the carton goat milk doesn't have that metallic problem. And so if you use carton goat milk, pups will accept that, whether it's day one or 2 weeks later, almost every time. Sometimes you may have to jiggle the bottle a little bit and jiggle the puppy a little bit. I don't know about my feedback, but I'll kind of shake the pup the like here's the bottle. I'll kind of shake it a little bit, and I think if you shake it a little bit, it kind of feels like the mother's belly going, and that allows the puppy to think that they're with the mother. It seems to work really well, but not a lot, just enough that they get that uh, comfort that they need to nurse. Be careful though that you don't have a nipple that flows too fast. You don't want your dogs to aspirate on it and get milk in their lungs. Next, salute to you and your commendable work. My question is, how long did it take for you to determine that you've made your own type of dog? All right, thank you, Royalty Keen, for the question. So, 35 years of study and 24 years of breeding. I have bought a lot of dogs, and this is why the upcoming video that we're going to have on Tuesday of selecting that high value candidate is important, because when I choose a dog, whether I'm choosing from my own stock or choosing from someone else, there's steps that I go through. And this is check out the video on Tuesday. But how long did it take me to determine? I personally don't believe that the evolutionary process of refinement is ever done. No matter how good a dog is, you can always make it faster, stronger, uh, etc. And so, by making a dog perform at a higher level every step, it's never really a finished product, in my opinion. You're always trying to make the next generation better than the past. However, when I sell a pit bull now or American Sentinel now, we're going to have grades to those. Okay, we're going to have like pet class and working class or breeding class, and people don't necessarily always know this, but if they study me or study our program or reach out to me, they will find that very quickly, because I try to be very descriptive on defining a dog the way I see it. And the reason why I do that is I want to be open. If I'm paying one, two, three, four, $5,000 for an animal, then I want to know what I'm getting. Okay, because some people just want a hog dog and they want one for 300 bucks because they're not interested in paying $3,000 for a dog that might get killed by a hog. But it's ironic that a lot of times when that happens, these same people want that great grand champion producing type of dog. Well, if you want that apex individual, I'm not going to sell my apex individual for 300 bucks. It's just not going to happen. Some of these apex individuals are really hard to come by, and we've spent a lot of money on some Sorrells dogs and Mayday dogs and other, Barracuda and you know different bloodlines that are out there, Bolio stuff. But we've gone down that road, and after going down that road, I can tell you now, every single pit bull on my yard is a dog I'd buy. That has not always been the case, whether I produced it or not. Every single pit bull that I own, whether I produce it or not, is a dog I would definitely buy. So now, with that said, I feel like these dogs represent me, and that's one of the topics that we'll talk about on Tuesday when I talk about choosing that dog. When you're dealing with a dog, whether a lot of the breeders of pit bulls, Maurice Carver, Floyd Boudreaux, Bert Sorrells, Pat Patrick, and others, unfortunately, they hung pedigrees on dogs, and that's an unfortunate fact of canine history. But we have to remember those people were participating in a certain type of venue that didn't always attract the most upstanding individuals. So um, when I breed a dog, I'm going to show you pictures of the dog's bred. It's going to be bred. Everything born here is bred the way I say it. You're buying a dog whether it was one of those dishonest breeders back in the day or an honest breeder today, and still verify it. Okay, you need verification because you only know what you're shown, and so you need to be shown transparency to see what's going on. You're buying a dog from that man. Okay, that man is the number one thing that you're dealing with because you need to know if they're honest, and if they're not honest, what is their quality? Okay, are they producing quality? You're buying a dog from that man. When I got a dog from Bert Sorrells, Captain Skip is a dog that I acquired directly from Bert Sorrells. I was not buying the pedigree, although that's what I hope I buy. But and the dog I was buying the dog that I hope turns out. The truth is, I was buying a dog from that man. He had a reputation of excellence. Why did he have a reputation of excellence? It doesn't mean every dog that he produced was excellent, but it means he strived for excellence. And so that's what you deal with when you're getting a dog from somebody, and that's what we are seeking for ourselves. We want every dog that we produce to be excellent, but the truth is, every program has holes. Any program that says every dog is excellent is either a liar or has very low standards. All right. So next, what are my thoughts on the Cane Corso? The Cane Corso is, in my opinion, an unstable dog that's very fear based. They do have defense drive, and when you get a good one, they can be great. Okay. But good ones are very far and few between. And what's not very far and few between is claiming they have good ones. A lot of people claim they have good ones, and there are very few of them that really are. So you're also going to see a lot of hip dysplasia in the cane corso. So if you can get stability, and let's define stability real quick. Stability means predictability. If I'm on a stable platform, I know that I'm not going to fall. If I'm on a tightrope that's very wobble, I'm unstable, I might fall. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to fall to the left. I don't know if I'm going to fall to the right. That's what instability means. You can't predict what's going to happen. So a lot of cane corsos are unstable. They're spooked. They're timid. They are nervous. They're fearful. They're rank driven. So they can go any direction. And it's very important that if you're going to get a cane corso, you get one that breeds for stability and also health. That's what I think about the cane corso. Next, Lee, can you explain the first dogs you started with building the Sentinel program? Which breeds you worked for you, which didn't? Which crosses worked, and which ones that didn't? All right, so we started with the my first American Sentinel was actually just a band dog that we purchased from Vince Haley of Elite K9. Elite K9 or Elite, I think Elite Kennels. That's what it was, Elite Kennels. He was a partner with Joe Lucero, who is a very well-known and well-respected band dog breeder back in the 90s, okay, and even in the 2000s. But um, maybe even before then. I don't think he was in the 80s. I think it was just in the 90s. But anyway, Vince Haley from Elite Kennels was one of his partners. And we bought a dog named Levi, aka, actually, his name was Leviathan. He was named out of the beast of the book of Job. When it rises up out of the water, people are tremble in fear of its power. That's where we got the name Leviathan from, but we just called him Levi. He came from that, and he was supposedly a fifth generation Neo pit cross. Some speculations say that he had, uh, well, that he was only a third generation. Who knows? Okay, over 20 years ago, 25. It was over 25 years, or right at 25 years ago. I don't know. Okay, he was a Neo pit cross type of dog, and he had some issues with his hip on it when he got old. About 8 or 9 years old, his one of his hips bothered him. I don't remember if it was right or left, but that's a very common problem with the Neapolitan or the cane corso. He was also a very tough dog. He was a very athletic dog, and he was a great dog in many regards. But when you deal with the Neo, you're going to have hip issues. So I don't really like the Neo, to be honest with you. The best breeding I ever did was similar to the best breedings that John Swinford did, and that was the game bred American Pit Bull Terrier and the English Mastiff. Now, the English Mastiff gets laughed at quite a bit, and it doesn't deserve to be laughed at because there's a lot of English Mastiffs that are certainly not capable of doing sound, committed protection work. But that's also true for the Neapolitan. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of people think the Neo is pretty good because it's got that defensive, fear based behavior, so it's easy to turn on. But under commitment of stress, some of them will fold. In fact, a lot of them will fold. Probably 90% of them will fold. They don't really want to be there. And then they also have hip problems. They also have coat problems. So the Neapolitan, in my opinion, um, is something to be suspect from. Also, the English Mastiff has more power and more durability when you get a sound one than the Neo has. So I like the English Mastiff better than the Neapolitan. And we also use the Tosa Inu. So we use Pit Bull, English Mastiff, Neapolitan, and the Tosa Inu. Four different breeds. The number one reason for my success is not the American Pit Bull Terrier, even though it is in some ways. Without the Pit Bull, we couldn't have done it. But there's a lot of Pit Bulls out there. But and if there's a lot of Pit Bulls out there, if you don't know where to find a good Pit Bull, you can holler at me. You can holler. Anybody can find Tom Garner. Okay, I don't know why people are using things like am staffs, which that was one of the problems in the Joe Lucero band dog. He used am staff instead of game dog, and he also used Neapolitan, which had a lot of hip issues. So um, that was I don't know why people are not using a healthier, more determined animal like the game bred American Pit Bull Terrier, except for the fact that they just don't have good connections. So if you don't have good connections, do your research and find you a good game bred American Pit Bull Terrier. But let me get back to what I was saying. The reason for our success is we found good English Mastiffs. A good English Mastiff is very rare. They've been watered down, and made soft, um, because when you're dealing with a 120 to 180-pound animal, it needs to be somewhat soft to the handler in the family. Otherwise, you have a liability. And I did not get a dog to be a liability to my family. I got a dog to be an asset to my family. But when you find a good English Mastiff, they are way, way more capable than people think they are. But because most of them are trash, the breed as a whole tends to be trash. But the breed, that's also true for the Neapolitan. The Tosa Inu is a better candidate in the aspect that there's a lot less trash. But it's not as good an aspect in that when you do find a good English Mastiff, it's a superior animal. Okay, people will disagree with that, and I'm going to get conflict for that because people are going to say, well, the Tosa Inu is this and the English Mastiff's that. Look, I've owned both. I've worked both. I've seen both. And you're right that the Tosa is superior to the English Mastiff and the Neo 90% of the time. But when you find that really specimen, English Mastiff, you've got one formidable animal. The pain tolerance is through the roof. You just can't hurt them. And their strength is through the roof. It's the strongest dog out there, not pound for pound. The Pit Bull is the strongest pound for pound. But total ability, there's a reason big guys lift more weight than small guys um, in weightlifting competition. They don't lift as much pound for pound, but they do lift more mass total. And the durability on those English Masters is just through the roof. All right, next. Can you explain? Okay, so what did not work for me? We did try a Great Dane cross. It's too fragile. Great for man work, great athleticism, great speed, good endurance, but totally lacks the durability. If he gets hits by a hog, his shoulders can be broke too easily. It's just they don't have the longevity and recover time that I would want. Also, you're still prone to some of the other health problems, but the biggest problem with the Great Dane is fragile and also the confidence. They just don't have the confidence for combat. Presa Canario. I think it's proliferated too much. 20 years ago, it may have been a decent dog. Today, they tend to be bred for size and they're looking more mastiff-like. I don't think the consistency is there. I've worked dozens of them. I've seen some that have good prey. I've seen some that have good defense. I can't think of ever seeing one that had both balanced. Okay, so that's an unfortunate thing. And now that they're getting bigger and sloppier and sway backed and high in the rear, which a little high in the rear is okay. That's not a bad thing if it's a little high in the rear. But when things become exaggerated and you get the sway back and the giant bone, the giant head, the giant flews, which is the lips, the flews are the upper lips. When the upper lips are hanging down, really far, the dog's fanging itself. They're not a dog built for stamina or heat. In Mississippi, we have a lot of heat. Next, don't know much about the Alapaha Blue Blood Bulldog. I think when you start getting things like blue in a dog's name, I already become skeptical just because why would that be in the name? I mean, it just sounds like you're trying to make something unique off of the name alone. But whatever. That we got to be able objective enough to look past that. And so, if you really want to know about something like that, do your research and make sure that people provide you proof of concept and proof of explanation. If they can't do it, and show you that they can do it, then be skeptical. As far as the American Bulldog as a whole, very, very strong animal. A lot of them have determination as well, but what they don't have is heat tolerance. I know that there's different lines that are better at it. Okay, you're going to have like the Scott line, the performance lines that are better at heat tolerance, but I personally find them lacking in heat tolerance. I'm not trying to make my enemies, but you asked my question, so I'm going to speak to you the way I think. And some people are going to come in here and try to get me to think otherwise, but I question whether they have the experience that I have. So I know a lot of people that have thought they were great for hog dogs. They got them, they tried them, and they would dog would be looking for a creek to lay down to or a shade tree to lay in. And I unfortunately know some people that have tried to prove that their dogs could do it, and unfortunately, on a hard hunt, sometimes those dogs don't make it home. They suffer from heat stroke and things like that. That's my thoughts. There's a reason the American Pit Bull Terrier is what it is, and we can put our head in the sand and deny the truth if we wish to, but in time, experience will prove that to be the case. All right, that's my opinion on the American Bulldog. Next, what muzzle type or style of brand would you recommend for a band dog? We use Hard Dog Requisites muzzles. They're kind of expensive, but they are outstanding in quality. There's others out there. Just make sure you get an agitation muzzle when you're using an agitation muzzle. When it comes to breeding and you just need to muzzle a dog for breeding, you can find cheap muzzles, inexpensive muzzles on Amazon, or even electrical tape works really well. Don't use duct tape. Okay, duct tape is hard, it's abrasive, it sticks too firm to the dog. But electrical tape is soft, it's flexible. They use it on animals. Professional animal preservation people use electrical tape to close dogs' muzzle when they're dealing with it, and it works well. Okay, it's soft, it's flexible, and you can get it off by just because it stretches. You can just hook it, pull it off, and it comes right off. You don't have to unwind it and whatnot. So, what's the objective? If you're doing for protection work and agitation work, go with a muzzle that's designed for that. It's better for the dog. So, Hard Dog Requisites, we have a number of those, and we use those when and if we're using a muzzle. I do think a muzzle is an underutilized tool, but I don't think it's the end all be all by any means. A dog needs to learn how to grip, and you need to see what the dog is doing on the grip to be a good trainer. And yes, dogs naturally know how to bite the same way a fish naturally knows how to swim, but it has to get comfortable in that bite. Just because you know how to throw a punch does not mean you know how to throw a punch um, in a fight. You have to be comfortable there to do it. Okay, so next, um, I don't want to get one that doesn't fit the head shape. Hard Dog Requisites will help you with that. They have a couple of choices on that. Just describe what it is that you're looking for, and they will help you. Next, is Scratch considered to be the top stud in the program right now? If not, which stud do you consider to be the apex predator of your program right now? All right, good question. So Scratch has earned his place. Okay, he's one of my favorite dogs of all time. I wish I had a lot of decoys to work with in this area of the country, but they're just really rare. Keaton Temple, a friend of mine, major shout out, major love for Keaton. He will tell you that he is not the best decoy in the world, and he doesn't kid himself on that. He knows that he's not the best decoy in the world, but what he is he's golden, man. He's that kind of friend that you can look for 100 years and not find. He's just a golden, good friend of an individual, and he's willing to do the best that he can. And Scratch is a dog that, if he had the type of training and decoy work that a great dog like him should have, he would be very, very well known. The dog earned that name through an unfortunate incident that was an accidental incident. He got knocked out one time, and when he came to, he went to engage. Um, he was not phased by it one bit. I'm glad that he survived. I was concerned that he was not going to survive, but it was an accident. He actually hit his head on the cement, and that's what knocked him out. but he came to and went to engage. So I have complete confidence in that dog's commitment. Now, his production ability, he has produced my favorite female at this point of all time, Lady Smith. She is my favorite female. And Lady Smith is out of Scratch and Onyx. Now, another great female is Valkyrie. But as far as studs go, the top stud that I've had in history, I would say would be Justice. Justice has produced so many outstanding dogs. That does not mean every dog off of Justice was outstanding. We've had to cull every generation. The same will be true for Scratch. Right now, I have a lot of interest in a dog that we have named Slam, who has shown many great traits, and he's never caught a hog and he's never done protection work. There's other ways that we look at these dogs that we can describe them and people will dismiss them, say it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Slam was raised in an environment by a friend of mine, Pat Patrick, that you've heard about, and he has displayed traits that we would like to see, but unfortunately, he was a kennel dog for the first multiple years of his life, and he just never had the opportunity to develop any man aggression because he was always told to be nice and knock it off and be nice. And so Slam was a nice dog, but what does he come from? He comes from working dogs, and the dog wants to work. We know that about him, or I wouldn't use him. So we're using him a little bit, and in time, because he's missed that imprinting phase of man aggression, and maybe we could get it out of him if we really pushed it. But do I really want to push it, or would I rather get a couple of good prospects off of him and start from ground zero with a perfect clean slate? And so in time, we may actually sell Slam to a hog hunter that really wants just an absolute beast. I mean, that dog is so strong, fights hard. He's a tough animal. Um, uh, Bumper, which is Scratch's brother. Awesome dog. He produced Jaguar's dog. First, I only seen Jaguar once. He Jaguar's dog once, um, and which is Jalik. Jalik owns Jaguar, and that dog is an awesome, awesome dog. I believe that dog is out of Boomer, excuse me, Bumper. I think I said Boomer earlier. I meant Bumper. And who's the mother of Jaguar? I think it's Lady Smith. Jaguar dropped a comment in the comments here to confirm that Jaguar is out of Bumper and Lady Smith, if you're still here. Great. So Bumper's proven to be a great producer. I really like the stuff that we got off of Vlad and uh, Jazz, and I like this. Although they were smaller in size, they seem to be the one I have is a nice dog. We also have a nice dog off of Vlad and Lady Smith. So Lady Smith is looking to be a good producer because Lady Smith produced Jaguar's dog, and she's produced Chewy, which is a dog that we got off of Vlad and Lady Smith. But here's what I'm getting at. I'm kind of rambling on. Point blank, after 25 years of breeding, you have no business breeding an animal that's not going to basically produce. Okay, the first time you breed it, you don't know, but after you did that first breeding and maybe a second breeding, you really should start to get a pretty good idea. If that animal's not producing, then it's not going to stay here. Because not only do I have to have workers, I have to have producers. We are a breeder, and as a breeder, I can pretty much take. This might sound egotistical, but I can pretty. We have a family of dogs, and we can pretty much take any male to any female, and it will typically be okay. So, is there a top stud right now? Not necessarily. I wouldn't say that there's a top stud. Um, Ranger has produced some awesome animals. If I look at that Ranger Elsa litter, that litter was so hot when they were young. We were calling them Death Wish. I mean, they were pretty hot. And Ranger's only been bred a couple of times. One time we bred him to Onyx. There was only three that survived out of that. And I've gotten excellent reports from two of them already. Now the third one, I don't know. It may be great. It may not be great. I don't know. So, at this point in our program, pretty much every dog that we have is going to be a pretty should be a pretty solid producer. Okay. And again, by solid producer, that doesn't mean every dog out of those litters are going to work. You're going to have to look for those individuals that are worthy of considering. All right, next, a question on how do you tell your bloodline is too tight in terms of dogs mentally, bone structure, or other characteristics. Well, a dog that's bred too tight sometimes will have a lower litter size, or maybe show some health problems. And since right now we're not having any litters that are small in litter size. We've been actually having a pretty large litters lately, and I've never really had what I would call genetic defects pop up in our line. We don't have skin issues. We don't have a high degree of hip dysplasia. Hip dysplasia is going to be existent in any dog that's going to have mastiff types in it. But the few times that we have seen hip dysplasia, it's been from the Neapolitan. And fortunately for us, our percentages of those problems is so low, so much better than what you're going to see in the general population. It's actually not a problem. We're actually making improvements in those areas. So, how do you know it's too tight litter size? I can tell you that if we go back to Wrecker and None of It and Machete, those dogs were kind of difficult to get litters from. So they may have been bred too tight. And Wrecker was the most inbred dog that we have ever had. And he produced None of It, and he produced Patches, and he produced Four Socks. And those dogs had very limited reproductive capability. And that's because there's things going on that we can't see that maybe impact the overall physiology and endocrine system of the animal, but don't necessarily result in displayed phenotypic issues. Because those dogs were all healthy, they were all athletic, but there's something going on there that we don't see, and that affects their ability to reproduce. So that's a sign of a dog that's been bred too tight. We need more lives like this. Hope, thank you, A. I appreciate it. It's something that we hope to do. If I get enough support, we're going to buy some software to improve our ability to bring things like this to our viewers. Next, did you ever think about trying the Rhodesian Ridgeback mix in your program? No. And the very simple is, why would I? If you look at what does a Rhodesian Ridgeback bring to the table, and then you look at those traits, you can find other breeds that bring those same traits to a much higher degree. So why would I use it? No offense intended. It's a good question, but that's why I would not use it. Do you believe whenever I'm wanting to add a trait, I'm going to look for the breed that is most likely we have our the word prejudice means to prejudge, right? We get standard views by looking at generalities. And so if I'm going to look at a trait, I'm going to look at that standard view of generalities for what breed brings this trait. And then based off of my experience, my prejudice of those breeds, I'm going to look at those breeds and then I'm going to find the line that's well known for that. Okay, so if you wanted a healthy English Mastiff, I would go look for Deer Run Kennels from Tobin Jackson. But unfortunately, that was so long ago now, because I did this 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and found it. And it was getting rare then. You go try to find that today, uh, it's going to be obsolete almost. So good luck finding that. But that's how I would do it. If I wanted the American Pit Terrier, I'm looking for what breeds or bloodlines, excuse me, what bloodlines of the American Pit Terrier have done man work, have good size, have good stability, are good with the family, and are still good at gameness and good athleticism. That's what led me to the Sorrels dogs. And then I look at the Sorrels dogs and I see some dogs that have all these things that I'm looking for, and I see other lines that maybe are a little nervous or a little frail. I stay away from those. So not all Sorrels dogs come into my program. Okay, we have the Sorrels dogs that we have are kind of like the ones that have Robinson approval. So that's be very careful when you're selecting through your individuals. Uh, do you believe that certain American Pit Bull Terrier lines jumped had their pros and cons not specific to the breeder? Like it's pretty well known that the Boudreaux lines tend to have good ability and good mouth, but they don't necessarily excel in the gameness. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true. Maybe that goes back to the dog Spook and Scrub and Blind Billy. All three of those dogs were foundation dogs in the Boudreaux line, and all three of those dogs had quit before. So, um, but that doesn't mean that they're bad. I mean, every great breeder that I know, if you gave them the option to have bullies on, they'd grab it in a heartbeat. Okay, because he was a well-respected individual. As far as their pros and cons, not specific to the breeder. Well, I that's a hard one to say because some lines are don't have a breeder. For example, the Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone has been done by so many different people. What breeder would get credit for that? So there's not a breeder that's necessarily going to be able to obtain credit for Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone. As far as pros, maybe, I mean, maybe for the same thing. The Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone seems to work really well, and it doesn't have a single specific breeder, so that line does seem to work. And actually, Bolio is very closely related to the Sorrells dogs, or excuse me, Patrick's Yard, which used Bolio Tombstone, is very similar to the Sorrells dogs. And that's one of the reasons why I brought Mayday into the Sorrells dogs, because I know Mayday work was a combination of Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone, and yet the Sorrells was very similar to Bolio Tombstone. So I did that combination, and it worked outstanding. So um, to get more specific than that, I would need more information on the question as far as what you're asking. Corey, thanks for the thumbs up. King Royalty, I have a retracted message. I don't know. Oh, I guess you took it down. All right, next. I hope I didn't miss too much. Well, if you did, Richie, don't worry about it. We're going to leave this video on our YouTube channel. You can check it out when it's done. Can we see a video of Slam? We do have a video of Slam on our YouTube channel. If you go to our YouTube channel and search for Slam, you'll find it. It's just a video of him playing with a tire. It's nothing specific. But since he is already kind of past, he's like what, 3.5 years old or whatever. This is just a guess. My question is, do I really want to go back and put a ton of foundation work into a dog that I know is never going to be able to reach his full potential because the imprinting phase? I mean, if you take a Albert Einstein's kid and you lock him up in a room and you let him to get to be 20 years old, and then you try to educate him, you've missed a lot of brain development. So instead of looking at what I can do with him, because it's going to take a year or two to get him where he needs to be, I can work with his offspring. I know he has the traits, and because he's displayed the traits and other things that are not necessarily man work. If I took him hog hunting, I think maybe we'll get a video of that. The problem with that is YouTube. I've gotten strikes on my channel because of hog hunting. We had to take down all of our hog hunting videos because we were going to lose our channel, and that's where Slam's going to excel. All right, so it is what it is. So we're going to try to get a pup off of him and do some protection work with him. All right, next, Ladysmith and Tate is great. Yeah, Jacob, you want that combination, and I was going to reach out to you because I'm actually thinking about doing that, Jacob. So you're going to be the first one to tell about that because you've been begging me for that for a long time. In fact, this week, the reason why I say I was going to reach out to you, I actually spoke to our vet about moving our semen that we have frozen on Tate to his facility so we can get that breeding done. I don't know for sure still if I'm going to do it, but we're actually considering it more than I was in the past. So here we go. If we do, unfortunately, got one shot. I've only got enough semen from Tate to do it one time. Would you consider an Argentina Dogo American Bulldog type? I'm glad you actually mentioned that. Something else that I wanted to say about the American Bulldog is I don't like white dogs. I understand that people want them so they can see them, but that's exactly why I don't want them. The I don't want a lot of white on my dog because we do protection work, and there's no SWAT team in the world that wears white except for in the Arctic region. If you're dealing with SWAT protection work, stealth is important. So a lot of white takes that element of away. A black dog, a brindle dog, a buckskin dog, a fawn dog, red dog, a blue dog, all of those are kind of hard to see, especially at night and in the woods. But a white dog, I got you in my scope, buddy, and you're going down. If I wanted to take out a threat, so I don't like white dogs for that reason. A little bit of white on the toes, a little bit of white under the chest doesn't really bother me because those are not highly visible areas. But even those areas, I want to personally avoid a lot of white. And sometimes you might see a little white blaze on the nose. We've got a pup that was born yesterday out of Slam and Biscuit that has a white blaze on its nose. That's a dog that I won't keep. I know it sounds stupid to say, well, it's just a white blaze on its nose. Occasionally, maybe it's not that I won't keep it. If it's an awesome animal, I'll overlook it, right? But it's already an animal that I'm not interested in because those white blazes they grow really fast during you breed. So if you do breed a dog with a white blaze to another dog with a white blaze, now you have a white head. I mean, it's not something that always happens, but it's just something to be aware of. So I don't like white in that area because of camouflage. The other problem with white is it promotes or it's connected to a lack of pigment, which is necessary for proper development of health. The ear and the eye both require pigment in the dog to properly develop, and white dogs lack that. So personally, I'm not interested in the Dogo Argentina or the American Bulldog because why would I be when the reason a person would breed to those dogs is for pound per pound efficiency and determination. And the American Pit Bull Terrier eclipses both of those breeds in that regard. Plus, it's got better heat tolerance and more pound for pound efficiency. So to me, the American Pit Bull Terrier eclipses the Dogo Argentina and the American Bulldog. And you might say, yeah, but they're bringing more size. Well, I get my size from somewhere else without having to deal with those negative effects of the white gene. All right. If you had to start your program over again, would you use the same route or do the same things? I would use the same route, except for I would skip some dogs that didn't prove because hindsight's 2020, right? So I wouldn't bother with the Great Dane cross. I think that's a waste of time. I think they're way too fragile. Okay, they just don't have the abilities. And obviously, I would use the Neapolitan far less, if at all. I, I mean, I got some great dogs down from that, but we had to call it right. And so the refinement, the gene flow, genetic drift, excuse me. So gene flow is when you're bringing in new genes. So that's the outcross to the Neo, right? You outcross to the Neo, and now you have your gene flow. Then you're going to have to um, bottleneck those genes to cull out the genes that you don't want. This is your performance selection or selection of traits criteria. After that, you have your foundation that you're going to work with. And then you take that foundation and you do the same thing and repeat it over time. And you slowly genetically drive or genetic drift those traits that you like to a higher allelic frequency, which means more common in the population, or to a lower frequency, eliminating the genes that you don't like from the population. So this is all a, would I do things differently? The only thing I would do is not use dogs that proved to not be worth using. But you don't know that until you do it. So it's hard to say. I do wish that I could have done things a little faster because our time on Earth is limited. And there have been times that because of the breeding ethics police, they went out and you got these people that have never bred a dog in their life telling breeders how to breed. It's kind of a joke. But when I say breeding ethics, a lot of people say, don't breed a dog until it's 2 or 3 or 4 years old. Look, I don't like breeding a dog on its first heat because the dog just became an adult. And I want to see the dog perform as an adult. But there have been a few situations where I've done that. And that's because the dog showed me something in its adolescence that I thought was really nice. And that's not enough, but also because I wanted to do a breeding with a dog that maybe was really old, and I didn't know if I was going to have that time to do it later. So that do that without in situations like that, do that without worrying about the breeder police. I will breed a dog that I want to breed on second heat. Uh, Coming into heat's not enough. There's some people that just do pedigree and just having a heat cycle is all they have to do. No, that doesn't work here. I want to see that dog has the traits that are necessary to excel. All right. Um, Other than that, the breeding police, everything else would be pretty much the same. I appreciate your time, insight, knowledge. You definitely have my support 100%. Thank you, Royalty King. I appreciate it. Ant, sorry if I butcher your name, Giavara. What dogs of yours owned, produced, would you say is the most intense work or prey wise? Hmm. Scratch, Ladysmith, Bumper, Chewy. Those dogs are triggered on pretty much everything. And then every other dog that's in our yard is going to be really high in those same measurements, maybe just as extreme as them, but maybe not on everything. So they have different key things that they'll key in on. Okay. Mr. Lee, appreciate it. Did you ever consider livestock guardian dogs? No, I don't want a dog that's bred to work on its own. I want a dog that's bred to work with me. Pack instinct is extremely important to me. Livestock guardians are bred to be out there, leave us alone, do your job, don't really interact with us, just do your independent thing. I want a dog that really wants to please me because it makes it so much easier to train with, plus it increases the trust relationship. Next, white dogs have problems. I have one right now, skin problems, allergies, all kinds of stuff. I refuse to have another white dog. He's awesome at protection work, but there's just too many problems. I agree 100%. Can you always tell how good a dog will be when it's a pup? And what is the perfect age? Well, the one thing you can't tell is necessarily hips. Uh, Believe it or not, even though PinHip is looking into evaluating a dog's hip when it's really young, they have age requirements on that. What's actually, and they're looking at joint laxicity. I think that's how you say it. I know the word, you know the word, but laxicity, where they're looking for the elastic aspect of the joint. So this is going to be the femur, and then this is going to be the pelvic girdle, and so or the pelvic socket. So that femur, the head of that femur goes into that socket kind of like this, and you're going to have a girdle there. I should have my hand upside down, but I can't turn my hand that way. So we're just going to do it like this. That femur is going to go into that socket, and it needs to have a good point. And they're looking at for joint laxity on see how much displace they can displace that femur femoral head from that socket. I guess it would be like that. But anyway, if they can stretch it out too far, then you're more likely to have bone issues. But in puppies, believe it or not, it's not developed yet. And so you're measuring joint laxity on something that's not even developed. So even though pin hip may be a better test than like OFA or whatever for hip evaluations, I don't worry about that until the dog's grown. And I don't do OFA; it's very expensive. And when you have 30 dogs, that'll bankrupt a program. We do hip evaluations, but my vet is trained in radiology, and since he's trained in radiology, we do the hip X-ray, and he looks at it. And how do I present that information to you, my potential client, or whoever? I don't need an OFA stamp that tells you good, excellent, poor, fair, whatever. I just put the X-ray up. You look at it. Transparency is there. There's the X-ray. You look at it. I'll tell you what my vet said, and then you can see it and see what you think. All right. So, other than that, as far as drive goes, confidence goes, general overall structure go, I want a dog that can breathe efficient when it's on a hold. I want a dog that's got a high degree of pain tolerance. We're going to do a puppy selection video next week. These are going to be things that I look for, and in my experience, 9 times out of 10, you get a great pup. The only thing that you have to worry about is it going to grow up and be sound. The traits, if you have a really great pup, the only way that dog, in my opinion, my experience, you raise that dog right, you're going to be good. Now, some people say, well, you can't tell when they're pups. Okay, you're right. You can't tell. You can't tell. All right. I'm not going to say I'm 100% right all the time, but I certainly have a good record of predictability on whether that dog will be good. And some of the apex individuals that we have produced in the past were sold to some people that said, I want an apex dog. And then they got that apex dog and they're like, oh, wow, this is more than I thought or more I bargained for. Can I back off and get more of a pet class animal? Because our pet class dogs will, generally speaking, suit most people. I respect what you've got going, and hopefully will near future. We hope our future is bright, man. I want to do this for as long as I can. Time for me to get in health so I can continue to do this for 20 more years. We've struggled lately. Okay, for those of you that don't know, my wife had cancer. Last year I had gallbladder removal, and my mom's 91 years old. The last 3 years have been very, very hard for us, but we've made it through. And now that we've made it through, we're back on the path of recovery, and the future's looking bright again. So my mom's situation, I had to help her out with her situation, and unfortunately, they're my extended family, not my household, not my children, but nieces, nephews, cousins, brothers, sisters, and whatnot. There's been issues that I had to get involved in to protect my mother's estate. A lot of people coming in with hands wanting to grab stuff and or abuse and things like that that we've had to intervene with. Which every family is going to have some of that stuff, and it was a really hard detractor for us and stressful for us. And it came at a tough time. When I got done with teaching and I retired, I thought I was going to do K9 full time. Here we go, right? And then, unfortunately, my mom needed me with her health problems. She's 91 years old. Uh, I wish, bless her with health and longevity, but we had to intervene with that. And then I had gallbladder removal, and then my wife had breast cancer. So all of those things have been really tough on us right now. But we are blessed, man. Financially, I was good enough and prepared enough to make it through the tough times that we had, and we're going to have some discounted dogs here because I've not been able to promote as well as I wanted to over the last few years. But things are coming back, and we're looking for a bright future. So now that things have turned around, we've got all that stuff in order. We're looking to proceed. And over the next few years, I want to build actually a canine facility, an indoor canine facility where we can train year round. Get a couple of treadmills, get some good equipment, have some decoy seminars, and get a lot more work done in the future than we've done in the past. And Keaton Temple is out there proving those dogs with the hogs. I've got a lot of video evidence of those dogs working that I want to put together and present to the public, but that has to be done within the codes of YouTube. So you can have a hog hunting video on YouTube, but if you have a small channel, you can get away with it. Go check out Keaton Temple's channel. You can see some of the stuff on there. They don't really watch the small channels, but when you get a bigger channel, they start watching you. And so if you have a video of a dog catching a hog and there's any blood, all of a sudden you get a strike and you're threatened to take down your channel. But if you talk about the video for 10 minutes and explain what's going to happen, and then you only show the stuff for like 10 seconds, they don't care. Okay. So, or 20 seconds or 30 seconds, they don't care. But you got to like explain and justify everything that's going on as far as the hog hunt. Otherwise, they think it's graphic content. Scratch Justice, Preacher Man, all bred down from Eclipse and Captain Skip. That's correct. All right. Justice does have some of the, and so does Scratch, being Justice's son, has some of the blue gene blood, which goes back to Lynn, which goes back to the Tosa Pit Bull cross bred to Levi. When will you do another yard tour? We're going to be doing that soon. I would say within the month, maybe within 2 weeks. Salute everyone. Thank you. Can you explain how you got introduced into the game dogs? How you met Madison Parker, Bert Sorrells, Pat Patrick, etc. Sure, we'll do this real quick because we're going to wrap this up. We've been on here for 117 minutes. So, for those of you that don't know, I told you that I was an outdoorsman quite a bit in my younger days, and one of the things that I did was a lot of hiking, hunting, archery, camping, fishing, things like that. And we actually, I mean, I'm a perfectionist. Not in everything. Some things don't matter, but things that matter to me, I'm a perfectionist. I want it done, and I want it done my way. All right, that's just kind of the way we are. And so I started making my own archery equipment. I was making bows and arrows and stuff like that. And I went to a traditional archery competition, and Madison Parker was there because he's a retired Navy SEAL. He had a course on wilderness surviving and living skills. He taught people how to go out in the bush and find a meal, how to make a shelter, and how to prepare dinner, and how to get water and things like that. And so it turned out he had a booth uh, for his skills, and I had a booth to display some of the archery equipment that we made. We made a lot of hand guards and quivers and arrows and stuff like that, bows and arrows. And we were next to each other, and I had a dog with me, and he came up and started talking to me about the dog and uh, looking through the books that I had. And we had some books on wilderness living, and he grabbed a few, and we talked to when everything was slow and the sales were down because maybe people were shooting or it was late at night and they had gone to their tents and were camping out and whatnot. And he and I were just sitting by the fire shooting the crap, and enjoying each other's company. And he started telling me about his past, and I told him what I was doing with the dogs. And this was in 2001 or 2002. I already had Levi. I already had some pit bulls. I already had my Tosa Inu, and things like that. But he started telling me about Bert Sorrells, and so I was like, and Madison didn't know me real well then, so he wasn't really talking so much about himself, and he said that he used to do a lot of conditioning and handling for Bert Sorrells, and so we came home and we decided to reach out to Bert Sorrells, and we went down to his place and we got a dog. His back was out. Actually, the first time we went there, we went to breed to champion Pokey. Some people say that he was never championed, that it was all fabricated. I don't know. I saw some people say he was a one-time winner. Some people say he was a legit two-time winner, legit one-time winner. All speculation from people that have never seen the dog. I see these people talking online about what Pokey has or has not done, and I asked them if they ever saw the dog, and the answer was no. I saw him. I saw him twice, or when I say twice, I saw him for a week one time, and I saw him for a week again a second time. So I saw the dog. The dog was a beast. He was tough. There's some pictures out there where he looks pretty sloppy, and he did have some skin around his face, and he was a big dog. He was a really big dog. Um, but that dog was strong and that dog was driven. And so we bred the champion Pokey twice. Neither of those litters took, and that was because Bert Sorrells didn't want me to do the breeding. Bert Sorrells was a breeder. There's 100% truth in that. But breeding a pit bull to a pit bull is one thing. Breeding a pit bull male to a big 150-pound English Mastiff is another. And he was not able to get the breeding done sufficiently. We did get penetration, but we never got pups. And I expressed my disappointment that he wouldn't let me do the breeding because I knew how to do it, get it done. So talking to Bert Sorrells, he went back to grab Captain Skip because he knew that I was liking Captain Skip. He was only like 8 months old, 7 months old at the time, and he knew that I liked that dog. And he came back, and even though a lot of people badmouth Bert Sorrells did me right. He went and got that dog and said, "Hey, you paid for a stud fee. You didn't get pups the first time. It looks like you're probably not going to get pups the second time." He said, "Here's this dog, Captain Skip, that you like." And I said, "Wow, Bert, I really appreciate it, but I hate to tell you, this was again 24 years ago. After I paid a stud fee, I said, look, I would love to buy this dog, but I can't buy him. I just don't have the resources at this time. I was a young man, and I bought 9 acres in the house, so I didn't have the resources. So, but Bert Sorrell said, no, take the dog, and you can pay me what you can when you can." And I thought, wow, this is cool. So I came home, and we waited a year. And a year later, we bred Captain Skip too, because he was only 7 months old when I got him. So a year later, we bred him. And after we bred him, um, and we had a litter of pups that produced Preacher Man, Bandit, Thin Ice, Gator, and a dog named Blade, which is Preacher's brother. Um, we sent Bert Sorrells his money, and we told him thank you for trusting us. So he didn't have to trust us, but he did. And so, regardless of what people say about Bert Sorrells being a dishonest person or a liar or a cheat or a thief or whatnot, take it with a grain of salt. Yes, he fabricated pedigrees. It's well known that he fabricated pedigrees. But when it came down to business ethics, he may have done some bad things, but he also did some good things because he treated us right and wanted to make sure that we were taken care of. And that's the kind of I appreciated that. Okay. Did he have his faults? Yeah, just like you do, and just like I do. We all have our faults. So he wasn't a perfect man, but if you want to meet a perfect man, you're going to have to go meet Jesus Christ. So next, Pat Patrick. How did I meet Pat Patrick? I think he actually just called me up the first time he saw my band dogs. He had gotten some livestock guardians. He had a Borbal. Um, he had a Kangal, and I think he was just looking at larger catch weight type dogs that had gladiator ancestry, and he wanted to see what the American Sentinel was about. And that became a great friendship. He is purchased or required. Some of them we gifted, some of them he bought. 8, 9, or 10 dogs from us. I can't even remember. I know it's at least 8 because I counted 8. That was a few years ago, and he got a couple more. So I just don't remember if I counted 8 before or after, but I think that was before. So he's gotten like 10 dogs from us, 9 or 10 dogs from us. Pat Patrick is a good friend, and he has his faults. And some people say that he's a liar and a cheat. Also, people are so quick to throw the stone, man. Um, Look, he. Have you ever told a lie in your life? Have you ever stolen something in your life? Have you ever looked at a person with lust? Okay, none of us are sin free. And Pat Patrick, the cool thing about him is he did not have to tell the public when he lied about how certain dogs were bred. Buck, STP's Buck. He had that dog was bred one way, and then later on he admitted the truth. Some people give him a hard time about Bolio because somebody stole Bolio from Indian Sunny, and then after Bolio bit a kid, they brought Bolio to Pat Patrick and said, "Hey, we can't keep this dog. He bit a kid. Will you keep him?" And Pat Patrick said, "Yeah, I'll keep him." And Bolio knew who, or excuse me, Pat Patrick knew who Bolio came from, but also Indian Sunny had stolen Tater from Pat Patrick. So, not saying that that justifies it because it doesn't, but it has nothing to do with me. I mean, we're talking about way back in what 1970 or something like that. So, anyway, he did not have to tell the truth on how he acquired the dog. He did not have to tell the truth on how Buck was actually bred or other dogs were actually bred. He did that on his own free choice, and he could have went to his grave with those secrets to himself. But his character said, "No, I need to tell the truth about this." So I give him credit for coming clean. All right, next, and they all did it. Maurice Carver lied. All those guys lied about that stuff. And nobody goes down in history in the pit bull terrier more than Maurice Carver and Earl Tudor. Those guys were the apex of the game. Next, which Sentinel offering would you suggest to start a yard? Chris, if you're really interested in that, reach out to me, send me a message, and tell you want a yard starter. Okay, because a yard starter is you need the right individual dog more so than the right breeding, because good breedings are important, but the right dog is more important. So that's going to be a top dollar dog, right? Because you have your pet class, your working class, and your breeding class, and the breeding class is higher than the working class, believe it or not. So reach out to me if you're seriously interested. Newell said, if you can answer what happened to Logan Eastwood, bro, I've always wondered. I like bro. Those dogs are very intense, and those were Eastwood is a dog that we had sold. Came back to us because he was too intense. Or bro, that was, excuse me, that was bro that we sold. He came back to us because he was too intense for the people that bought him. The others went to some hog hunters. Very serious dogs. Eastwood, you have to. His name. He was a tough dog. I should have kept Eastwood. I wish I'd have never gotten rid of him. But those dogs were dogs that we got rid of. Next, but Eastwood. Oh my goodness, I really should have kept Eastwood. That's hindsight being 2020. I wish I'd have never got rid of him. If you ever get time, Rumble is another platform that you might be able to. I have a Rumble, and I like the fact that you can put hog hunting videos. But if I go to my channel and I try to find my hog hunting videos, I can't even find my own hog hunting videos. So that's something. I have two gripes that about platforms that I wish would be better. I wish Rumble would get their act together and get it where you can go in there and type American Sentinel K9 hog hunting and find what you're looking for. I've got like 10 or more videos, maybe more than that, maybe 20 or 30, I don't know, hog hunting videos on Rumble, and I can't find any of them. Next, the other platform that I wish would be fixed is X, what used to be Twitter, I guess. The Elon Musk is promotes free speech. I like that, but his platform, just to me, in my opinion, is not user friendly. I really wish I wish it was user friendly because I want to support him for supporting freedom of speech. Next, nobody is perfect, but it's good that you are able to learn and network with some knowledgeable people. That's exactly right. Something else that I wanted to do. There have been times in the past that I've banned or blocked and restricted conversation with various people that don't seem sincere. There's different types of people. There's the blind and the gullible. That's not any good. You know, you don't want just people to follow you just because they're blind and gullible. I want skeptical people. You might think, why would you want a skeptical person? A skeptical person is somebody that questions everything, but they accept what's proven true. These are the type of people that are intelligent enough to say, hey, look, I'm going to look at this. And if you can validate it, prove it, explain it, justify it, we're good. I'm on board. That's the type of people I want. What I don't want is cynics. I have blocked and banned and restricted cynical people that already know everything. Their glass is full. They're not really interested in conversing, and they're not even interested in sharing what they know, because they can't explain it. They can't prove it. They just have an opinion, but they're going to act like they're God, and if they said it, it's true. I don't have time for people that already know everything but have no experience and can't explain it. I haven't in the past. Not when I'm dealing with gallbladder issues. Not when I'm dealing with my 91-year-old mother who needs me. Not when I'm dealing with my wife in cancer. Not when I have 30 dogs on the property and I'm dealing with customer service. Sorry, I have to prioritize and you're not my priority. However, now that I'm retired and I've got most of those things in order, I want to promote more free speech on the platforms that I have where some of these people that have different opinions than me can share their views if they can explain them and then justify them if they and have proof of concept. But if they don't have proof of concept and they can't explain it and they cannot justify it, I even want them to be able to expose themselves a little bit because when they fail to do those things, it exposes who's telling the truth and who's not. Now we can't be spammed with that stuff because one of the things about being productive is to prioritize and spend your time where it matters. And so I have not given those people a lot of my time, but I do want them to be able to show expose themselves, so to speak. So I have to allow a little more free speech than I've allowed in the past when I was really busy. Because I used to teach and drive a bus and still do all this stuff. So now that I've retired from teaching and I'm not driving a bus, I used to teach at a college, not just high school. A lot of people think I taught only at high school. That's not true. Okay, I taught at college also, biology, uh, 1 and 2 at college. So uh, there you go. Well, I think this is a good point to wrap it up. If you have any questions or comments that you would like for me to address, my uh, website is linked below. I'm wearing a hat that's, let me turn here, that is Grit and Steel. Check out their stuff. They have good, nice collars and leashes. They did not sponsor us. I'm just trying to support a person in this industry that I think is a good person. I'd like to see more good people succeed in this industry. And I would like to see more people seek education and whatnot. But if you have a topic that you would like for me to discuss, email me the topic or send me a text to the topic. The way to contact me is in the description. It has a link to my website. My website has my email. My website has my phone number. You can reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'd like a video on this if you have the time." But I need to go. Family is waiting for me at a cookout, and it's here at noon, and it's just right down the road. So I'll be back home pretty soon. But we're not going to make another video today because 90 minutes is enough for one day. We're going to have a video on Tuesday. Check it out. It's going to be a great video on how to obtain that high caliber prospect, whether it be a puppy or an adult. And it's going to be different for a breeder than it is a worker, but still, a lot of the steps are going to be the same. So check it out. If you like this video and want to see more of it, please, this is something I typically don't do in my videos. Every YouTuber does it. Like and subscribe and give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithms, and it's about time for me to ask my viewers and supporters to do that for us. Share it on your social media platform if you will. We certainly appreciate your support. Y'all have a blessed day. God bless you and thank you and take care. Let's see if I can figure out how to end this.